Like, we love money.
Yeah,
we love money.
He almost like hit into another car and he swerved.
Hey, like, suck it up. The world was not created to please you and make you happy.
Men generally, when they want to discuss things, they have problems. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to Brothers Narrative. This is our first podcast. Today we have with us Abdurrahman and Bakr on the podcast. You are here with me, Brother Sasha. And again, this is just going to be a podcast talking from the brothers' perspective, the brothers' narrative on certain topics. And the topic today is going to be men and emotions. So we're just going to pretty much... Actually, we won't dive right into it. We're just going to have a brief around the circles. So I guess we'll start with my right, I guess, and we'll go from there.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. My name is Bakr, and I'm happy to be on the Brothers Narrative podcast.
Yeah, and I'm Abdurrahman. Yeah. I don't think there's much to say about ourselves.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, again, mashallah, very beautiful brothers. And I'm always, again, I think it's very valuable to bring people that have things to contribute towards the brothers narrative, and that's exactly why we are here on this podcast right now.
Yeah, hopefully we can contribute. And for this time, for everyone, we're all friends as well, so we know each other pretty well.
Yeah, and we're all young as well. Can't speak for everyone.
The other thing is, just before I guess dive into it, if anyone has any things they'd like to contribute towards this narrative as well, please reach out, please DM us or put in the comments, things like that. You can, maybe we can figure out a way to come anonymously or things like that to discuss issues that are impacting young Muslim men. And I guess apart from that, we'll dive right into the topic.
Before we dive into it, can I start off by asking you a question?
Go for it.
Why men and emotions?
Why men and emotions?
Yeah. Why is that your first question that you had to ask in a podcast?
That's true. One, Bakr recommended it.
Opinion on this guy.
That's not one. That is the number one. And look, the thing is, again, like for me, I don't really have like, okay, this is what must be said all the time or whatever. That's why, again, exactly why I brought people like Bakr on the podcast, because I want to hear from a wide variety of Muslim brothers to see what's important, things like that. For me, that's honestly a very valid thing for me. I see men in the space of emotions. I think they're struggling. But the thing is, they're struggling, again, this is just my own thing, for a different reason that's being put out there. I think, I guess I'm getting heavy very fast, yeah?
Go for it.
But like I feel like there's a lot of push towards men having to deal with emotions the same as women. So it's like
feminized men.
Yes. And because the lines have been blurred, so it's like, okay, now it's like, okay, no, like if a man, if someone asks a man, have you seen a psychologist or whatever, or a counselor or whatever, and they say no, it's like, why? It's not like, you know, firstly, it's a private question, but secondly, it shouldn't be an expectation that men have to always see that as an option. Yeah. Yes, it is an option, but it's not like, okay, it's just going to be a very quick thing to dive into it. Yeah. And on that, sorry, please
straight into therapy.
Yeah. Straight into, yeah. Well, okay. But look, I think young men generally, when they want to discuss things, they have problems, like a problem to deal with. So it's not like I want to be here chatting to get things off my chest.
Generally speaking, I'm not here to tell you my emotions. I just want a solution.
Yeah, because I think young men, or again, like I'm going to say young men a lot. And by the way, I'm going to caveat this. Young men is anywhere between like teenagers, like a young Muslim man, teenager, hit puberty.
There is no such thing as teenager.
It's true.
I just have to market that. But I'm trying to push the idea. I've been telling it to everyone that I meet. I even put it up on my socials recently. The idea of a teenager doesn't really exist in Islam. So like we believe that you're either a child or you're an adult. There's nothing in between, right? So being a child is someone who's not muhasab. Basically, they're not held accountable in the deen. And then you reach an age of puberty, you hit that, mashallah, you got to pray your salawat, everything's on you now. So the idea of that teenage, I think it comes from the Western civilization where you got that time.
He's just a teenager.
He's sussing out life. He's just, trying things out.
Yeah. You know, on therapy, I'm not saying, if people need help, people can get counseling, people can go to psychologists. Sometimes people, there's a imbalance in the brain or anything like that. And people can go, and psychologists and counselors can really help, and they're playing a role. But one thing that I'm really finding as troubling is always just whatever people come sometimes, especially Western psychology or Western counseling, and it's like, oh yeah, you're right. Whatever you say, I'll affirm. And sometimes even like when I was in high school, I mean, even like sometimes speaking to people and seeking advice, they would always just try to be soft with you. I wish sometimes like the people that really helped me, especially growing up, were the ones that were very blunt with me.
Yep.
And like said, hey, like suck it up. The world was not created to please you and make you happy. You're just going to have to live by it. The world does not evolve around you. And that's I think something we should be pushing more. But yeah, that's on emotions. I think it's very important.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Again, just going back to my earlier point. It's like, so do you think most of the time, like again, I said it, but I want to just see what people think about it. Do you think it is most of the time that young men are in a position where someone might say seek counseling, whatever? It's usually because they have something they want to actually work, like a problem they want to solve, rather than. I think
counseling and therapy being an option is important, but someone needs to realize when they need it and when they don't.
Yeah.
So when it's made as the only option out there, that's the problem. So anyone who has a little bit of an itch, they're like, oh, I don't feel good this day. I don't feel, and then they just go, I need therapy, right? So like it really does, it does take a toll on a person if they ignore the things that they need help with until it's too late. That is problematic. I was listening to this one guy recently. He was like, it hit him that he had some sort of depression, but he didn't want to acknowledge it, and he told his parents, and they were like, "Oh, suck it up, don't worry about it." Yeah. Until he reached the moment where things got so intense. He was in a car, he was driving with his family, and he almost like hit into another car and he swerved. And then in the back of his mind, just subconsciously, he was like, oh, we almost hit the car. That would have been nice.
No.
And that's depression, straight up depression. But until that moment, he didn't really realize that he needed that help. Right. So that's one thing. That's depression is a thing, anxiety, all this stuff. But not everything is clinical. I mean, just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean you got to talk to someone about it.
Yeah, people are overdoing it with it. Like, look, again, and the fact that every time we say people are overdoing, we have to put a disclaimer. It's like, no, we're not saying counselling is bad. We always have to put these disclaimers, which is just a very annoying thing in society. But I do it subconsciously. Like, I don't even pay attention to it. But yeah, it is. And we're not saying like not to speak to anyone.
Yeah,
people need to naturally speak. I mean, we see it. It's a natural thing. We can't stop it. I sometimes want to speak to somebody, as much as I want to hold it in, it's like, I'll speak to my brother or my mother or my father. Generally speaking, yes, men are looking for solutions. And we're saying generally. Another thing that I pointed out here, it's like every time you say, men are meant to be more logical, they need to stand firm. It's like, no, but men are meant to have emotions. It's okay, you can cry. It's like, okay, yes, I can cry, but those are exceptions. I'm not meant to be crying 24/7 about every single problem that happens. And if we look at the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we look at the times that he cried. For example, he went to visit his mother's grave after asking permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He went and visited the companions. They mentioned that he started crying until his beard became wet. So it was related to family. When his son Ibrahim cried, he said, the eyes are crying and I'm sad, but I say we all return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. But he said he was very sad and he started crying. And some of the younger Sahaba, they hadn't seen him cry before. It's like, do you cry? He's like, yes, of course. And he explained that to them. So yes, it's okay to cry. But we will also see the Prophet ﷺ, who's a brave person, who when he goes to At-Ta'if, to that town, which is a city next to Mecca, and he calls them to Allah and they reject him. And then he walks past, his feet are bleeding, the blessed feet are bleeding. And then he only calls out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't have an account, despite all the incidents of hardship during the Prophet ﷺ's life, where he goes on and starts whining and complaining, oh, they did this to me, they threw the stones at me, they did this. We only know this because of accounts of Sahaba that were around, and eventually people narrated these stories, but we don't have an account of him complaining or making khutbah, they did this to me and they did this to me. So I think this is also a problem, having that balance between it's okay to share feelings, but it's not good to be always constantly complaining, especially as a man.
Actually, do you know? I was just thinking as you're explaining, I'm like, there's no surely, psychology is actually something new. Like, is it something new? Like for me, that just comes to mind. Like, when was psychology introduced? Not as a science, as actually a practice that people have problems to discuss related to feelings and related to that stuff. Because I'm sure through history, it was introduced at some point. And I don't think it was.
I mean, we're not experts. We're not experts,
at all. But it comes to mind.
I'd say in the last 100, 200 years,
I would
max.
say so too.
But as a practice, because the ideas of it was being researched throughout time. Like
it's natural.
You have
100%.
Muslim people back 700, 800 years ago.
Sociology,
reading
like
about
very
it and
true.
stuff
Doing
like
so
that,
on.
But like actual therapy,
practice,
talking to a
as a
person and
practice,
getting that to make things happen, that's probably relatively new. But it does help.
It helps.
Not in every situation.
I would actually be interested to like research when did psychology begin, because now it's like and even if it just, let's say if even it existed like as a knowledge or science, somebody was the father of psychology 50, 100, even 300 years ago, it was always a common practice. But to institutionalize it the way it is, that would be interesting to
think
if anyone knows, put it in the comments below.
You're making them do the homework.
And the reason why it's interesting is because it's like understanding, okay, if they didn't have that as an option, how did they really go about things? You know, was it the point of, sucking it up? Was it because it was just solving a problem? So I go to the person that's going to solve the problem for me. I
think when life got easier, people got softer, and they now require things like this. I mean, back in the day, they didn't have it as easy as we do. They say that the life that we're living is actually the life of a king back in the day. Go back hundreds of years. Each individual of us is living the life that a king would live back in the day. We're eating things that were reserved for the kings. We're sleeping on beds, the chairs, everything that we have, the kind of clothing that we're wearing, all of that was reserved for kings back in the day. So now that everyone's in that comfort and luxury, of course, people, the toe hurts a bit more than when you hit it on the wall or something like that.
Do you know, based on that, and I think a lot of it has been coming to light from like what's being pushed on YouTube and stuff like that. A lot of people, again, from the masculinity perspective, which I don't disagree with, is don't think your actions are only going to be done because you feel like doing it. Like you do what you don't feel like doing a lot, and it's got like that strong man mindset, to say I'm going to go gym when I feel like going gym. Or I want to do this when I want to give charity because I feel like giving charity. Well, we love money.
Yeah,
we love money.
If we just did what we felt like, it would be a catastrophe.
Yeah. So it's just like having that kind of discipline, self-discipline. And if you have that self-discipline, and again, this is why, for example, historically, maybe it was because back then the way society was governed was people did what they necessarily didn't want to do. It was like tough. It was more laborsome. It was again not comfy, luxurious right now.
Like
right
even
now,
Allah said in the Quran, "Kutiba alaykum al-qital wa huwa kurhun lakum."
Yeah.
Like sometimes when the Muslims had to go out and fight, Allah said it's been prescribed upon you in certain circumstances to do that, but it's hated to you. Nobody wants to go out and risk their lives, but it's like something that you have to do. It's something that a certain group of people have to do. And this idea these days that's like, I just want to do what like it's very hedonistic, which is it's like what I feel like and what achieves my happiness, me, myself and I. Again, when you were talking about why people need to go and talk to someone, I guess people didn't need to do that as much as before because family was much more important and much more grounded in society. Now when we've lost family in society, where family is in shambles everywhere and people don't see the importance of like, why are you getting married when you're in your 20s or 30s? No, later on. Like, I'm not feeling the urge to have kids or stuff like that. It's like, obviously, you're not having that connection. But when there's a solid family that are all growing up around each other, they understand each other's problems. Sometimes it's not like a psychology session where you need to sit down for 1 hour and talk. Okay, that might work sometimes. But sometimes you just need that family. It's like sometimes a family member might just say something in the background and it hits with you, or you just resonate with a family member. Family is so important. I think it just helps, and a healthy family as well, where the gender roles are being practiced, the traditional gender roles, the positive ones, of course, which are, I would argue that a majority of traditional gender roles are actually positive, where the man is responsible. It's like, no, there's some heavy lifting. It's like, okay, no, the man does that. We're not going to, but on the other side, okay, maybe there's some cooking and stuff. Okay, the ladies are going to do that. They'll do that better. No problem. What's wrong with that? Now, in today's society, they just want it all fluid. It's like, no, we're all doing the same thing and we're all the same, which is even biologically wrong and incorrect.
I mean, it's very audacious of people to come now in the 21st century. And
Audacious, I like that.
it's something I just thought of. But
Flexing that word on us.
I'll use arrogant. It's very arrogant of people to come in the 21st century, just show up and say, people have been doing this for years and years and years and millennia, you could say, right? But they were all wrong. And now we're more modern. We know better. We should decide how people work. We should work based on how we feel. We should do whatever we want. It's just very arrogant.
Do you know? I think those things are being fed, not by that person that's having that thought that's their own. I don't think it's their own. I think a lot of things are from the capitalists. No, well,
had to say
in some regards,
yeah.
Yeah. And again, like, if that's how you interpret the Matrix to be, yes. But technically, I think it's constructed based on capitalism, things like that, to be honest. Because again, like, for example, when did we try and introduce women to really push hard into the workforce? And again, it's in very recent history. And that, I would say, put family dynamics at serious risk.
Of course it did. And it's very politically incorrect to say that, but it did. Like, that's reality. We're not saying it's haram for women to work or women should stay at home. Because as soon as you say something like this, they're, that's what you're saying. Oh, you want women to stay at home. Oh, you're so backwards. Straight away. Like, it's like, don't breathe. Don't even like think differently. Just go with the flow. That's what they want us to do.
Yeah, and again, look, we are discussing these things because they come to mind. For example, if we were to say no woman should be in the workforce, you look at that as a global economic picture, I don't think it's sustainable.
No, of course not.
It's not something that, you know what, if everyone was to practice that, I was thinking about that today, I'm like, the economics doesn't fit.
It doesn't work. I think it doesn't work practically. Your wife wants to go to the hospital, you want a woman to take care of her, and for children, they're more empathetic, for kindergarten, for school.
I think that the economy right now has braced towards both genders in the workforce, But again, there's that kind of macro perspective, and then there's the micro as well, from every individual's circumstances and perspectives. One of the things based on that, again, we went from feelings to, but we'll let this keep going. One of the things that I've picked up on was there's that natural expectation that after VCE, women are going to go and study. Like it's an expectation, like there's something wrong with you if you actually don't. But what if young women that don't even know this is an option, by the way, you're allowed to get married and actually not pursue a degree, for example, and actually have children with your husband, and he is the one being the breadwinner, and then again falling into the traditional gender roles. But right now, if you were to say that, or if a young woman herself is to express that, I would really wonder what kind of judgment is going to be thrown upon her.
Because the idea now is that if you say I want to, it sounds like I have to. And everyone's going to be like, no, let's save her. She's being oppressed.
Yeah.
And that's the idea. Like, just because you want something doesn't mean you're being forced into it, which is how everything traditional is being painted as people being forced to do something. When sometimes it's just voluntary. And that's how things work.
And even then, like a woman can pursue education, of course, and have a husband and get married. I mean, it's like, especially here in Australia, the way we the way we can work and study, if parents and society is kind of making it easier, which is not really happening right now. People can get married when they're young, while they're pursuing a career, even while they're pursuing education or a career, or especially like, and this is what's actually amazing. It's like in Islam, the man has to be the breadwinner. So I've seen a lot of brothers that have traditional households where the man is like maybe 2-3 years older, so he's already working, and the wife, she's still in university, and he's spending on her. And how positive is that? And she's doing her education, and then later on, when they grow up and stuff like that, they have kids. He said, okay, I just want you to make sure you're the one taking care of my children. I trust you. I don't trust the people in the childcare. I don't know what they're feeding and what they're taking. So it's like, okay, but then yes, you can eventually work in a dignified way that does not clash with Islam, as long as you're giving the household right, because that's the main thing that should be taken care of. Like it's a lot more complex than to just give a general rule, of course.
Yeah, 100%. And for example, I don't think there's any one thing to say, this is the roadmap, this is the blueprint that everyone must, be indoctrinated into. That's not the thing there. But again, it's all facts and circumstances for everyone. But to understand, it's a team dynamic. So work as a team, good communication, expectations. And this is why for me, going back to the emotions, things like that, I think premarital counseling would be good for any couple that wants to get married, because there are certain things that comes to family dynamics that maybe we're still quite immature when we're in our young 20s or whatever, when we want to get married, we haven't thought about these things, you know, from both perspectives, but even from a man, like, again, the gender roles or whatever, is that really a thing? Is it just going to like fall into place, pieces of the puzzle? Or because like a lot of times a lot of us might be from first generation born in Australia, or even still being part of the migrants, but grown up in Australia. And then our households with our parents are very traditional. So we expect it. It's just like the pieces are going to fall together. It's just going to be like similar to my parents, whatever. And then when you do get married, it's quite different. You know?
Gender roles are not something like we pick up in a course that we do. Or something. It's just something that happens over the course of our life.
That's right. But again, like growing up in secular society in the West, things are definitely going to be different to our parents. Yeah. And I'm not saying they have to be exactly the same. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. I think we have to accept it's going to be different, but we have to contribute towards how that different looks. And we won't know until we have a good think about what are the pressures on us. Yeah. For example, one of the pressures is, and this is like one of the things that keep coming up as a hot topic, is about, can we sustain a household on one income?
Yeah, sure.
And that's for me. I'm like,
we have to be practical.
We like for me, I would like to think you can. I would like to think you can, but have I really confirmed that independent? I haven't. Like, I would actually, if anyone would like to provide details about their finances as a young married couple to see where they fit, if one income is enough, please reach out and let us know.
Yeah,
but like,
sister gave
it's a nice segue. He just looks at the camera and just addresses the audience.
Was it the right camera?
Good,
but look, again, for me, that's why again, Brother's Narrative is about discussing these things. For example, we're not out there. Like, again, young men, alhamdulillah, we have desires. Yeah, it's a fitna, but it's actually something that is healthy and halal for us to embrace in a good way. Yeah. Again, it completes half our deen. But when we're young men, obviously, it's like, okay, financial viability. Is this even am I even able to? Is a graduate income enough to sustain me, for example? So for me, that's like my background is in the finance industry. Yeah. So for me, if I can help contribute towards the finances to see, is it enough? One single salary, average graduate salary or whatever. Because when I got married till now, times have changed quite significantly since when I got married, 9 years ago or whatever. So,
Mabruk, I guess
my age. Yeah. So
you did get married pretty young.
Yeah.
I won't give away your age.
But so again, it's like again, there's that perspective, that dynamic to say, actually, maybe most people need to work together, like physically work. So
what would you say to the younger audience? So when we say young men, mashallah, someone who's already thinking about getting married is probably like on the older scale of young men. But what would you say to the young men who are not even at that stage yet, where they're starting out uni, they're doing something that is, they're probably thinking about marriage maybe in the next 4, 5, 6 years? What would you tell them to do in the meantime?
I'm going to start, but I want everyone's opinion on this, please.
Okay.
So for me, I would say don't look. Don't look. Don't look. Don't even consider. Don't even be like.
Lower your gaze.
Don't search.
Don't search.
Yeah.
Don't even think. Don't even think. Oh, I found the right one. Nah, cross it off.
Yeah.
Cross it off. Like, seriously, because if you're not even in a position where you can get married, and I'm not saying for example, maybe there's a ways to facilitate our marriage where it's not living in a house. Maybe. But that would be open to, for example, you, for the girl, and for the people looking after her as well.
Discussion, yeah.
Her mahram and things like that. If they're open to something like that, I don't know. But if you're incapable of getting married young, don't even look.
Yeah.
Keep yourself busy. Yeah. Be busy. As a young man, go to the gym. I would say, go to the gym, seek Islamic knowledge, be a student, attend halaqat, Quran classes,
really
whatever it is. Yeah. Be an entrepreneur, do side business, whatever it is. Hit the books. Obviously, you're in uni or whatever. If you're a graduate, do well. Do well with your career. So you can advance faster to reach your goals. And map it out, because maybe a lot of people don't even know. Like, they say 4 years or whatever, but have they actually like put it on paper? Have they planned it? Really to say, for example,
that far ahead.
Like, I am studying. I'm in my first year. Yeah, this is my bachelor's degree or whatever it is. And then the average graduate salary is X. and then I know the household income or whatever is Y.
Yeah.
So is X more than Y?
Yeah, true, true. You know, that's actually a really good point about finance. But you know what I think is equally important, if not even probably more important, is maturity as well. Like, I'm sorry, but if what obsesses you and what's your biggest concern is playing FIFA for like 4 or 5 hours a day, or just watching this team and for like long hours a day, or going out with your mates all day, or this YouTuber and this YouTuber and the one that's, if that's all what busies you all day, if that's even a word, then I'm not sure if you're, no, I'm not sure. I'm sure you're not ready to get married. Like maturity wise, and you're gonna have problem because you're not ready for the responsibility of marriage. Like responsibility, you're gonna have to take care. Like if you're thinking about those things all the time, you're not thinking about how am I going to make an income enough for a family? How am I going to get married and build a family? Like the thing that I'm sorry, but if that's all what busies you, when you think about marriage, you're just going to be thinking about just like, you know, the outer thing and the like how I'm going to be looking. I'm going to go out. I'm going to have a honeymoon. I'm going to have a nice wedding. I'm going to be able to do things with my wife. If that's okay, that's one important part of marriage. But there's so much more. You're not ready for the responsibilities in that case.
And I think it's about priorities. Because if someone is prioritizing entertainment, self-pleasure, and these sort of things before they get married, then they're going to get married and they're still going to be sitting, playing games, playing FIFA, watching YouTube, and they're not going to be doing the things that they should be doing, the responsibility of the family, etc. Of course, we're not saying that fun is not allowed in Islam. You should be, you know, just running after money and running after deen at the same time.
Just being serious all the time.
But no, you can have fun. You can do things that are fun, especially with your family. But it should be halal, number one, and it should be controlled. Too much of anything is bad, even if it's something good.
True. And you have to make yourself, if you feel like, okay, I'm not mature, it's like, I don't have enough money, I need to make money. I'm not mature and I'm not responsible enough. I need to make myself mature and responsible enough. It's all happens from what's, you know, that drive inside of you, and then that drive makes you commit to action. And I think, we honestly need probably a whole podcast or lectures and lectures, but I think we're nearly out of time.
And I think I don't know if I've said it before, but premarital counselling definitely recommend that, so you can get that good frame of understanding responsibilities. And just like you've already captured, it's about I think a marriage is being selfless, not selfish, and a lot of the actions that you described is selfish. But I think we'll wrap up the podcast right now. Thank you for joining us on our first podcast. Please put your comments for anything you'd like to share, any experiences, any recommendations on topics or so forth. Please share.
Can you let me do this?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Make sure you subscribe. Click that bell. Is that a bell? Click that bell and comment, share, do everything you got to do. You know the drill.
Please continue to look out for future content, and please reach out, DM in the comments for future topics, or if you'd like to also join us on this podcast. Until then, see you next time.